Hey, this is Steve again, Steve Zook, Polk Zoo channel. Just try to get 2 or 3 of these done every day because I am getting a lot of traffic, which is cool, and appreciate everybody tuning in, and it's always kind of fun here to share information. So right now I'm going to tackle kind of an interesting subject, which is inside and outside playing. I've had this conversation with some really great guitar players on the phone before, like Alan Holdsworth, and it's an interesting thing. The inside and outside playing can, apply to many different styles, and I think what it really comes down to is, it's like Miles Davis said, you learn as much as you can about music and forget all the shit and just play. But in order to have a starting point here, let's just talk about a little bit. Obviously, if I play a G major 7 chord and I play a G major scale, right? Obviously threw in some accidentals, but that's pretty darn inside, right? Because it's a G major 7, and I'm just playing a G major 7 scale. Music gets more interesting, though, when you start adding color to your playing and you start getting more intervallic, because it gets really boring real quick if you're always doing what... I just look at music like color. I have a simple way of explaining this, but I mean, just like there's a color to like a pentatonic idea, you know what I mean? It gets interesting when you start adding different colors. So I always teach my students to try to always be creating color, and it's more about a way to practice too, because when you're performing or when you're composing whatever, things just kind of come out. Some great musicians like Michael Hedges say it's a gift, or people like William Ackerman, they say, well, I don't write music, it's a gift, it just kind of comes to me, which is an interesting way to look at it. But my point here, and I know Paco de Lucia, I love flamenco guitar, and I kind of play my own style of flamenco. People like Paco de Lucia will say, well, he believes it's 99% hard work and 1% inspiration. He believes in hard work. My point is that if you practice every day and you practice the right things, you're programming your conscious and subconscious mind to then have what many call the unconscious release, and more interesting music can come out of you. It's almost like putting files into a computer. So in terms of inside and outside playing, let's talk about some kind of interesting licks. Now, I've done a lot with this diminished scale, which you can work in minor thirds. 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. Come up a minor third. And that's a great scale to work legato and whatnot. And I'll do patterns like this. Okay, so anytime you have a scale, always try to think of creative ways think of every way you can work it. Like when you're practicing, try to just keep mixing it up. Try different ways of, if you do it one time like this, then double up. The idea is when you're practicing, just keep, making yourself try things different ways so that you expose your musical mind and your consciousness to those ideas, okay? But the idea I was going to share here on this one was an old, I do believe it's a Charlie Parker. I always think it's either Charlie Parker or John Coltrane. I think it's Charlie Parker, though, sax player, which is this lick. It's got to be one of the trickiest licks I know, and it's based on the diminished scale, okay? But it's, I know I'm probably not concert pitch, but that's my A right now, so it may not be perfect. I've got 40 guitars, and they're constantly coming and going, so it's hard to, but that's my A string right there, okay? But the lick is, and it's based on that scale. It's based on the diminished, okay, that scale. So it's starting here on C sharp, Maybe I'll just do little sections so you can get this, because I know you have nothing to kind of download. So, I mean, you have nothing to written down. That's the first part. Okay. Then you have. Okay. If you get the first couple parts, everything else you can figure out, because you just get that da 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 da, and you get that in your head. And that, by the way, is a great way to practice, is trying to sing the riffs. I know George Benson used to talk about that, as well as many other musicians. That's the first part. So you have. At that point, you have to come down a half step on the D string. At that point, I might want to go into an arpeggio, so kind of a. Okay, so that's that. Now, you know, the diminished, the way I teach music is you have high tension chords and low tension chords, you know. Like a low tension chord, I got up in the morning, I was feeling fine. I had a Big Mac on my mind, I want a Big Mac. Oh yeah, okay. Whereas like a high tension chord, like a diminished chord, is more of a transitional chord. It demands resolution. And it wants to go somewhere, okay? Okay. So a diminished, obviously if I'm playing a diminished chord with a diminished, you know, lick, then those two fit together pretty nicely, right? Even though diminished is a high tension chord that demands resolution, obviously if I'm playing a diminished chord, and I'm playing a diminished riff over it, then those two fit together pretty nicely. So even though the diminished is high tension, it's kind of an inside situation. So that lick, it's tricky. Like I said, when you get to the end, you might want to, on one of my other tapes, I show those forms. So at the end, you might want to go into a diminished arpeggio and kind of chromatize it. Get the accent. Okay. I think a radio just went on over there. That's crazy. Well, I'm going to ignore it for a second here. So that riff is this. Okay, in parts. And I'm going to cut this short because the radio just went on. Chromaticizing it, you could do something like this. This would be kind of a little more outside. Let me just go turn that off, and you can just sit here and work on something for a second here. We're a little low tech here. That's what's fun about it, though, right? Okay. So the idea on that was basically take that same idea, and we're just going to kind of have a little fun with it, okay? We can move it, we can chromatize it. So we take that finger pattern, like there's a really great guitar player named Hiram Bullock. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I used to see him on some late night shows. Really a great player. He used to do some things kind of like that. I remember once I saw him, he did a lick like a... Then he came down a half step, kind of like the last lick, kind of like this lick. But he would kind of come down like. Okay, so, and now if you want to stay a little more pure to that original idea, Diminished riff, the old Charlie Parker riff, you could kind of restructure it a little bit. And I think I've heard Baroli Legrin, who is he is such an inspiration to me. If you ever, he was playing Django note for note at 7, 8 years old. Grew up in a gypsy family, but even John McLaughlin calls him a guitar phenomenon. And I really hate to, oh, he's the best for all this kind of stuff. But I don't know, man. The guy is a giant. Along with people like the other night, I was listening to my radio and I heard Tuck Andrews do jeez. I heard Tuck Andrews do a solo guitar piece. Hello. Deep, man. There's some people that just get so deep into it, it's crazy. But just remember, it's not a competition. The whole idea behind playing guitar and playing music is just having fun. But as long as you're going to the trouble to play, spend an hour or two a day with some really focused practice, you'll get some huge results, okay? It's worth it. The disciplined effort will result in what many call the subconscious release. And that's what's so great about guitar and music, is that as you work on it, you get better and it gets more joyful because you can write and create. And all the great players out there, people like Eric Johnson, who I really love as well. I think as a composer, that's where he obviously is a great player, but his compositions are like polished gems. And people who are great composers have spent the time to really learn their craft, you know what I mean? And they've learned a variety of styles. That's why myself, I studied jazz, I've studied flamenco, I spent a whole summer taking concert level classical, I studied piano, theory, and just, whatever. All I'm saying is that the more that you learn, the more you'll get out of it. You'll get out of it what you put into it, is what I'm trying to say. So a little bit of, sure, we're all just going to mess around every day on guitar, but if you spend an hour a day of really focused practice, or 2 hours, or whatever you can do, you're going to get a huge result. So this riff, and again, you might want to take it in sections. Really hard to do this riff slow because it's kind of a complex fingering, and it kind of throws you all over the place. It's really good for your head, but it kind of messes with your head. So the idea here is you could change that. And the reason I mentioned Baroli Legrin is I have a really great DVD that I love to watch, the Super Trio with Dimiola, Larry Coryell, and Baroli Legrin. It's really interesting. Man, they really play. And I heard Baroli Legrin do a riff very similar to this, where he was playing a piece with Larry Coryell, and at one point he did this old lick, which I think maybe Larry Coryell might have even showed him at some point. I think I read about that somewhere, and Baroli Legrin had it just wired the next day, which is incredible because it's a really hard riff. But I heard him on this DVD, and he was adding that as a variation. So once you learn an idea, then you can start messing with it. And I know I talked about inside and outside playing. Most of that's going to have to be probably in another video. But the point being is that obviously if I'm playing a diminished chord and I'm doing just, that's a little more inside, right? Because I'm doing a diminished right over a diminished chord. But if I do this, still pretty inside because I'm still using the same notes, but I'm mixing them up, so it's a little more creative than just, that's a little more creative than just doing that, right? This, that's more creative. But if I'm playing over this, and maybe I'm the way I believe about inside and outside playing is you kind of play a little inside and let the listener kind of get some footing there on what you're doing. Then you go outside a little bit, and then just before you might lose them, come back. Or they're going to be, what the hell, this guy's crazy. So the idea is, maybe, what if I was playing over a section and I was using whatever I was doing, right? I might then throw in, I might throw in a little bit of the other, something different, something like that. And then maybe go back to more inside playing. So the idea is, you know, in inside-outside playing, you kind of take the listener out of the usual for a little bit, and then you come back. And I used to do a lot of trade shows where I'd play a lot of chord melody on jazz boxes and stuff. I used to deal in a lot of jazz guitars. And every once in a while somebody would come by and maybe say something nice about my playing, and then I'd say, well, man, you sound really good as well. And sometimes they'd be a little hard on themselves. They'd say, well, thank you very much, but I feel like I play too normal and too boring or whatnot. Meaning, and that's good, they're aware of that. They just need to maybe practice a little bit even on chord melody style of going outside a little bit more, using a little more chord color, using more, sharp nines, adding 11 tones, and just taking those, taking those chords, and even in the turnarounds and whatnot, doing something a little bit different, learning to go a little outside and make even your chords be a little bit different, and then resolve back in. Learn to create tension. What old Horace Hatchett, who taught Howard Roberts how to play, who I was lucky enough to work with for years, used to call it shading. Learning how to shade to where no matter what you're doing, you just start shading, adding different chord colors and different chord connections, which I'll be talking about. This is a big, big subject. It's not something just rattle off here in 5 minutes, but we're giving you little snippets of it, so next time you get to it, you'll be thinking about it a little bit. So the idea then, this riff, I'm going to do this. Just try to get that in your head. Try, if you can get that in your head, you'll get it. Okay? So and then if I'm doing something a little weirder, maybe I want to go outside. There I went kind of back in. At the end, now back to a diminished arpeggio. Okay. All right. So inside and outside playing can apply to any. Obviously, there's certain forms of music like blues where you probably can't get too crazy. You just got to rely on feel, and of course the best example of that's a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan. But I mean, to me, probably one of the best examples of outside playing would be a guy like Alan Holdsworth. I mean, holy shit, you know. But obviously, and then you take somebody like Pat Martino, those beautiful, beautiful lines that he does. That's a pretty good example. He's able to create a lot of augmented splashes and a lot of diminished and different things that he does. A lot of interesting chromatic ideas. So this is a big, big, big subject, and I'll be talking a lot more about it. But for today, this is an old Charlie Parker diminished riff based on this scale. Okay, it's on this, based on that scale, and it's at the end maybe go into a diminished arpeggio and chromatize it. So I'm going to try to make it short. Boy, I like this guitar. Something about Korina was really interesting, man. I just recently got turned on. I can't believe it. All the years I've had millions of guitars, I always just thought it was a cute sounding name, Korina, And I just recently, in the last week, picked up a couple Korinas. One's an Epiphone SG Korina, which I think somebody is buying today, and then I just picked up this Explorer. But I'm going to start looking for these. They just have a certain barky, a certain weight and sustain, but not like a thuddy, undefined weight, or it's just a really nice ring to the tone. So anyway, one more time, riff. And maybe when you get to the end, go into some diminished arpeggios. Kind of chromatize it. Okay. And then if you want this, This is kind of a finger shape. Going a little more outside there. Okay, or even more outside. Okay, so that's for today. This is a hard riff though, so be patient with yourself. Get that in your head. If you can memorize that, sing that. Maybe from there. Okay, you could come into the, do that much. Go into a diminished arpeggio, and then just come down the form like that. Another way to work that diminished is dotted eighth fill. I love that scale though. So anyway, work on that and we'll catch you on the next one. All right, take care. Bye-bye. I'm at 714-548-0385. You need to call me. Okay, catch you in the next one. Bye.